Good to be with you. I'm Tony DeCopel. The breaking news right now. Dangerous whiteout conditions in the Midwest. A massive pileup, more than 100 cars and trucks, multiple injuries reported. This as temperatures plunge in the south, what it means for your week. Rob Marciano is standing by. Also developing tonight, the demand for Greenland. President Trump tells Norway he no longer needs to think purely of peace as Denmark dispatches new troops to the territory. Holly Williams tonight on What's Next. And the other major story tonight, new clashes on the streets of Minneapolis, another weekend of anti-ICE protests. What the president is saying now about using the Insurrection Act to restore order. Also, the search for victims after two high-speed trains collide in Spain. Why it's being described as truly strange. Chris Livesay is there. And fashion designer Valentino Caravani, what he meant to so many.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Tony DeCopel.
Good evening. It's great to start another week with you. We have several major stories as we come on the air this Martin Luther King Jr. Day, starting with the dangerously cold weather. Near Grand Rapids, Michigan, a line of wrecked vehicles as far as the eye can see, all of it the result of a sudden blinding lake effect band of snow. As many as 40 tractor trailers involved in this, many of them jackknifed, as you can see along the side of the highway. It's all part of the very same Arctic weather pattern that is already bringing unusually frigid weather to much of the country, including freezing temperatures as far south as Florida. So let's get right to a very cold CBS News meteorologist, Rob Marciano, leading us off tonight. Rob, good evening.
Hey, accumulating snows into northern Florida as well. Good evening to you, Tony. Rounds of wintry precip over the weekend, expanding the snow coverage across the eastern half of the country. And that lake effect snow machine is cranking up again as we get another surge of Arctic air happening right now. Intense snowfall across the Great Lakes today, creating havoc on the roads.
We got a trailer blocking, but it's also snapped in half.
Blinding whiteouts leading to this massive 100-vehicle pileup in western Michigan. Rescuers having to weave through a landscape of jackknife semis and twisted cars to tend to about a dozen injuries. Some areas covered in more than 9 inches of snow.
It was absolute chaos. I mean, everyone was everywhere, people out of their cars, people rushing around, trying to get the ambulances through.
But from above, the view in Fairport Harbor, Ohio, appearing almost mystical as pancake ice floated along the surface of Lake Erie. Over 200 million people are feeling the bite of unrelenting Arctic blasts. Wind chills hit -40 in the northern tier and dipped into the 20s in Florida. A rare snowstorm dusted Alabama, Georgia, and Florida with 1 to 3 inches over the weekend. And it was a slow roll through parts of the panhandle as some drivers braced for the icy roads. Some of that snow sticking around with temperatures once again going to be below freezing. Look at some of these numbers. Pensacola seeing a accumulation there and through parts of Dothan, Alabama, Georgia as well, 1.5 inches of snow. And we've got the wind chill advisories and winter storm warnings across parts of the Great Lakes today. That will continue through Wednesday morning with surges coming off the Great Lakes. All of them open for business right now. So the closer you are to the lakes, the more you will see in the way of snow. And we will see a couple of feet, likely Buffalo southward, Syracuse northward, and up and down the western shorelines of the state of Michigan. But look at the temperature down across Florida again. Freeze warnings are up, and it'll be chilly with wind chills near the freezing mark in Orlando again tomorrow. 4 degrees in New York City. But look at double digits below zero in Chicago, in Cleveland, and Minneapolis. And Wednesday morning is no picnic either. That does set the stage for the potential of a winter event across the Mid-South come Friday and Saturday. So we'll have to deal with that. We'll watch it closely. Also watching the potential for Aurora Borealis tonight, a strong CME coming. So if you live above that red line, you got a good chance of seeing it, but you got to peekaboo between the clouds, Tony, and you better bundle up because, as you know, it's cold. Tony?
All right, Rob, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're going to stay with the Arctic, but turn to politics now. President Trump is threatening to use America's economic might to help the U.S. gain control of Greenland. And he brought up his failure to win the Nobel Peace Prize as potential justification for activating America's military might as well. Ed O'Keefe with the latest from Switzerland.
On the streets and in the halls of power, President Trump's push to take over Greenland today faced fierce pushback across Europe.
Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership. not pressure.
The president's threat to slap tariffs on 8 allies across the continent prompted European leaders to make their own threat of more than $100 billion in retaliatory tariffs if he doesn't back down. Among the leaders who tried persuading Trump to back off was the Prime Minister of Norway, who texted the president. In response, Trump said because Norway decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize, he no longer feels obligated to think purely of peace. But the prize is awarded by the private Nobel Institute, not the Norwegian government. Trump has argued Greenland, controlled by Denmark and home to a small military base, has to be under U.S. control for national security reasons. And if it isn't, Russia or China will fill the void. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also lashed out, saying Europe couldn't defend the island from future threats.
We're the strongest country in the world. The Europeans project weakness, the U.S. projects strength.
Democrats condemned the administration.
The president is lying to the American people when he says this is about security. This is not about security, John. This is about a land grab.
But visiting the United Kingdom today, House Speaker Mike Johnson sought to downplay the president's threats.
I don't foresee military intervention in Greenland. It's a small population of people, and I think diplomatic channels is the way to go.
The president is coming here to Switzerland tomorrow night to attend the World Economic Forum, where he's set to come face-to-face with many of the leaders, urging him to back off Greenland. Tony?
All right, Ed, thank you very much. The president's push for Greenland comes as we get the results of a CBS News poll showing that most Americans feel the Trump administration is placing too much focus on events overseas. With me now is senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams, who, among many other things, has covered NATO and traveled to Greenland. Holly, great to have you here tonight. So for the average American, not a diplomat, why does this matter?
Well, Tony, the countries that President Trump is targeting are some of America's closest allies, and they're also members of NATO. And remember, if the US ever comes under attack, it is those NATO allies that are pledged to come to America's defense. And now they feel as though they're being strong-armed by President Trump. Now, I do not think that the NATO alliance is about to fall apart, but this erodes trust. And America's dominant role in the world is really in large part because of its alliances.
Let's talk about security. The president says this is all about security. What's the reality?
There are security concerns about Russia in the Arctic, and we've reported on that from inside the Arctic Circle. Russia's building up its military presence there. It's carrying out espionage, and Greenland is in a strategic location between Russia and the US. But if that's President Trump's concern, then he can beef up Arctic security. He can build more bases there, and he does not need to buy Greenland to do that.
All right, Holly, great to have you here. Nice piece on 60 last night. Thank you very much. We're going to turn now to Indiana, where the FBI is helping the police track down whoever shot a state judge and his wife inside their home in Lafayette. Both did survive the shooting. Chief Correspondent Matt Gutman, though, has been speaking with his law enforcement contacts about what happened. Matt, good evening. What have you learned?
Tony, authorities in Indiana have launched that manhunt looking for that assailant who they say blasted a shotgun through the front door of that judge's home in a brazen middle-of-the-day attack on Sunday.
There was a knock on the door. Someone advised we have your dog, and then a shot came through the door.
And when police responded, they found a shotgun shell on the front porch, and Superior Court Judge Stephen Meyer and his wife Kimberly both with gunshot wounds. He was shot in the arm. She was shot in the hip. Both are now in stable condition. It happened in the city of Lafayette, about an hour north of Indianapolis. Now, the Chief Justice of Indiana released a statement saying that she is worried about the safety of all of our judges, and police have not released additional details about the suspect. And the sheriff said that they were not aware of a threat against this judge, but they have beefed up security at the courthouse today, and they say it'll remain beefed up for the foreseeable future, Tony.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now to Minnesota, where the largest operation in the history of the Department of Homeland Security is expected to grow even larger. Officials say their primary target is undocumented immigrants who've committed crimes in the Twin Cities area. Ian Lee is in St. Paul with the latest, including the potential involvement of U.S. troops.
A U.S. defense official tells CBS News 1,500 active duty soldiers in Alaska are on standby, waiting for possible deployment to Minneapolis after President Trump threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act.
If I needed it, I'd use it. It's very powerful.
This weekend, we saw anti-ICE demonstrators clash with pro-ICE demonstrators and ICE agents. In the middle of it all was far-right organizer Jake Lang, a pardoned January 6th defendant. Why are you out here today?
The replacement of white Americans by Somalians in Minnesota is a tragedy.
The Justice Department late today said it will consider federal charges against anti-ICE protesters who interrupted a church service in St. Paul on Sunday, where they accused one of the pastors of working with ICE. This federal building has been a flashpoint between protesters and federal agents. And over the weeks, as we've seen tensions go up, we've seen these barriers go up, essentially turning this detention center into a fortress.
That's what people here are responding to more than anything else, is they're not going to be intimidated.
You don't feel intimidated?
Not at all.
While these protests are not as widespread as those for George Floyd, the issue is still felt deeply within the community.
A lot of the things that people are doing are walking people who are going home from their jobs and don't feel safe going home. They're walking them to their cars. There are people out there delivering food to people who don't feel safe going to the grocery store.
I spoke with one immigrant family who says they don't go outside for fear of arrest. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice has filed a notice of its intent to appeal a ruling by a federal judge on Friday that blocks law enforcement in Minnesota from arresting peaceful protesters. Tony?
Ian Lee for us. Ian, thank you very much. We head overseas now to Spain, where two high-speed trains collided, killing at least 40 people. It all happened last night about 200 miles south of Madrid. Chris Livesay is at the scene.
Mangled steel and shattered lives. The two high-speed trains collided outside the small town of Adamuz, leaving carriages ripped open and rescuers and residents searching for survivors. The back carriages of one train suddenly derailed and were hit by a train traveling the other direction. It wasn't people anymore, said this local. It was pieces of people. You found arms. Spain's transport minister called the accident extremely strange. It happened on a straight stretch of track, not a high-speed curve or a complicated junction. The train itself just a few years old, and the track renovated just last May. Survivors describe chaos inside the cars, passengers helping passengers escape. People who were all right broke the windows and pulled me out because I was covered in blood, said this survivor. Now the search grows more complex and officials fear more dead are still inside the carriages. Now, rescuers are moving in heavy machinery they can use to extract the biggest pieces of twisted metal from the crash site. Now, as to what actually caused the crash, I spoke to Spain's chief train engineer for high-speed trains, and he told me that the earliest signs point to mechanical failure. Tony?
Chris Livesay for us. Chris, thank you very much. The fashion designer Valentino Garavani once said he knows what women want. Quote, they want to look beautiful. And he helped some of the most famous women in the world achieve exactly that goal. Valentino, as he was simply known, died today at his home in Rome. He was 93 years old. Seth Doan looks now at Valentino's impact on fashion.
His last name was Garavani, but just Valentino was enough to signal elegance, glamour, and that Italian style. Celebrities and royals were among his many muses, red carpets his stages, and that scarlet, or was it poppy, was a signature, his seductive Valentino red.
I love beauties, I love making women sensational, glamorous, elegant.
Opening his first atelier in Rome in 1959, he dressed those La Dolce Vita years and its stars. When Jacqueline Kennedy got remarried in 1968, it was in Valentino.
I think this is timeless. It's a work of art.
Valentino is an elegant person himself, so it makes sense.
Valentino was tanned, coiffed, surrounded by big personalities and little dogs. It was said he'd keep the air conditioning on high at his Rome atelier to encourage the wearing of suits. Heralded as the last of his generation of designers, he was a singular figure in fashion, known by a single name. Seth Doan, CBS News, Rome.
Even those who had disagreements with Dr. King now recognize that the changes he helped bring about were right, and in the long run made our country stronger.
That, of course, was President Ronald Reagan in an address to high school students back in 1987, reminding them of something then new in America, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It had only been recognized the year before, and in his speech, Reagan said he was counting on the young people of today to finish what King had started. 40 years later, in what has become a day of service and reflection, there was a peace rally and parade in Washington, D.C., all in King's honor. And his youngest daughter, Bernice King, led a service at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, where her father had preached. Tomorrow marks a year since President Trump started his second term, and as we asked Americans how they're feeling, here are the results. The most common response in our new CBS News poll, uneasy followed by frustrated. One reason, 3 out of 4 Americans told us their incomes are not keeping up with inflation. Overseas, Prince Harry took his legal battle against the British tabloids to London's High Court today. Harry and other celebrities, including Elton John and Elizabeth Hurley, accused the newspapers of illegally tapping their phones and using deception to collect information about their private lives. Coming up, the CEO of U.S. Steel on why he's okay with President Trump having some control over the future of his company. Stay with us. As promised, we have more tonight from our conversation with the head of U.S. Steel. David Burritt welcomed us last Friday into a plant in Pittsburgh where the CEO defended the company's acquisition last year by Japan's Nippon Steel, which came with a notable condition in order to win approval from the Trump administration.
As part of the partnership, as you call it, the president has a golden share, allowing him to veto certain key business decisions like closing a plant or moving locations. How does that work?
Well, there's nothing in this golden share that prevents us from doing what we want to do. We're aligned with what the president wants us to do. In fact, we wouldn't have agreed to this thing if we weren't sure it was going to be great for our workers and great for our company.
Sometimes profit means closing a plant. Do you have to get approval from the president if you want to do that?
We don't see us closing a plant. In fact, we just did have an opening here because of demand increasing at Granite City. But
if you had to make a difficult business decision.
If we had to make a difficult business decision, we would have to get approval to close a plant, but we don't see a reason to do that.
Burt instead highlights what he sees as the benefits of the deal, the $14 billion he says the company will be spending in the coming years, supporting as many as 100,000 jobs. You can see the extended conversation on our website at cbsnews.com. Up next, a tale of Hoosiers and hurricanes. Stay with us. Finally tonight, only in America, the college football championship game this evening. It's shaping up to be a great matchup between Indiana and Miami. But for Indiana, it's already guaranteed to be the greatest because it's their first. Indiana entered this season with the most losses in college football history. Now, though, it's undefeated, and if you're looking for reasons to care about this game, consider these. The team's most famous booster isn't a tech tycoon, but the guy who wrote a little ditty about Jack and Diane. Yeah, John Mellencamp, Indiana native. He watches the games from a wooden smoking shack built for him on top of the stadium. And then there's the coach, Curt Cignetti, who arrived as an almost total unknown in Elite Division I football, but promised reporters they'd soon understand why he's making now $11.6 million a year. I win, he told them. Google me. And then, of course, there's the team itself. All of them overlooked or undervalued in one way or another, starting with the quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. He got just one scholarship out of high school. Now he's got a chance for a storybook ending, a national title against the University of Miami, which just happens to be located in his hometown as well. Now, as a Miami kid myself, I cannot, in good conscience, root against the Hurricanes, but I do love a good story, and I think we all do. That's another day in America. For all of us here at CBS News, I'm Tony DeCopel in New York. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Good night.